Who are the cheapest players on FPL this season who might actually play? Believe it or not, they're cheap for a reason. It's because they're probably not going to score a lot of points, but that doesn't mean we can't find the next Lundstram, and I think I might have him up the sleeve. I'm going to show you my best picks for every position at the end of the video. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so we'll start in defence. Up first we have Nat Phillips from Liverpool. Phillips was on loan from January to Bournemouth, and he did really well when he went there, keeping a clean sheet in almost half the games he played for Bournemouth. Bournemouth were the best team defensively. They kept the most clean sheets in the Championship last season, so maybe we're writing them off and not giving them enough credit for how solid a defensive unit they could be in the Premier League. You know, we're seeing them as a promoted team and we're targeting them. Maybe Bournemouth could be better than that. And if, and it is an if at the minute, Nat Phillips goes back there on loan or permanently, he could be a great option. And he has been saying in interviews about how important first team football is to him. So definitely one to watch. Another important note is that he does have important experience at the top tier. He did play a lot of minutes, I think over 1455 for Liverpool in the 2020-2021 season, and that experience could prove invaluable for him. Next up, another Liverpool player who has left, and it's Trent's understudy, Nico Williams. Nico Williams is an attacking right back who does play left wing for Wales, the national team, and he was great last season for Fulham. He managed 2 goals, 2 assists and 14 appearances and was very attacking. He had lots of shots and created some great chances. He mightn't have as much license to get forward this season, but they have signed another right back at Nottingham in, hard to say, Biancone. And that could mean that Nico Williams has actually played on the left wing. Who knows? I'd be really interested from any Nottingham fans in the audience. Comment below and let us know where you think he'll play. And believe it or not, Nico Williams actually had the most assists per 90 in the Premier League last season. What a stat. Truly Trent's understudy. 12.86 assists per 90. He did only play 7 minutes though. Next up, we've got Patterson over at Everton. The young Scotsman has 10 caps and a goal already. Very young and seen as a longer term replacement for Seamus Coleman. He used to play at Rangers and impressed whenever Tavernier over there got injured. He ended up getting the move based off the back of that. He did injure himself. He got an ankle injury in April, but apparently he's back for pre-season, and it'll be interesting to see how Frank Lampard plans on using him. One to keep an eye on in pre-season, and if he's getting minutes, he could be an option. We've now got a double from Spurs to talk about, and first up, Joe Rodon. Joe's been linked heavily with Fulham, and he needs that game time ahead of the World Cup. 3 appearances, 3 points last season. It's safe to say he didn't do a lot, but he has been solid internationally. Definitely one to track, but to be honest, even if he goes to Fulham, they don't have great fixtures at the start of the season. So even if he does go, he's probably a no from me. Next up, Japhet Tanganga. Unfortunately, he hasn't really done much since he stormed onto the scene under Mourinho. 11 games last season for 29 points, and he's been linked heavily with a few clubs including Bournemouth, Everton and Southampton. I imagine he moves for game time, but I just can't see him fitting in at Spurs with Longley on the way in. You know, they need a clear out, and I think he'll be part of that. He could end up staying. If he stays, it's a definite no from me. If he moves, I suppose we have to see where he lands, but definitely one to consider. And one last defender to talk about, it's Brandon Williams of Manchester United. I'll just start by quoting an Instagram post he put out. My injury. I told myself to deal with it and bounce back stronger. My goal is to play in front of the best fans in the world. Hashtag work hard. Now, I don't know if he thinks Southampton's fans are the best in the world, but that's where he's been linked. I personally can't see him playing at United in the short term. We have Alex Telles there who could be leaving, Luke Shaw, and now Tyrell Malacia who's come in under Ten Hag who wants the guy. I just don't see Brandon Williams getting much game time. Even at right back, there's a good bit of competition with Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. Maybe this is one of those where he goes out on loan for another season, another 2, and then he comes back in because he obviously has been in the club for a long time and he's made his intentions clear. That's where he wants to play. In terms of his scores on FPL, you know, they are kind of ruined by the fact he played for Norwich last season, who conceded 84 goals and only kept 2 clean sheets. They were dead last in the league by an absolute mile, so it's very hard to kind of judge how any of their defenders would fare in another team. And then just the last point on him, if he even does go to Southampton, you know, there's a lot of competition at fullback there with Livramento, Kyle Walker-Peters, who's obviously been decent on FPL in the past, and then Perot, who played like 20 times last season. Lots of competition wherever he goes. He is injured for pre-season. one to keep an eye on. I don't think a transfer is out of the question here. On to midfield, and we're going to talk about some 4.5 million options. First up, Billy Gilmour. Highly likely to join Everton at time of recording. Frank Lampard loves him. He obviously came up through the Chelsea Youth Academy, and Lampard is probably a little bit biased. He wouldn't sign him if he doesn't need him, and I could really see Gilmour getting game time there. You know, he experienced the top flight with Norwich last season. I've got some nice stats for you now. He had 45.68 successful passes per 90 at Norwich. Like, that's not a great side last season. Stone bottom. And for context, that's only 0.08 behind Kevin De Bruyne. He had 14.05 final third passes per 90. And that's for a deep line playmaker. He had 71.4 touches per 90, which is miles ahead of the next best. And he had 2.37 points per 90, which doesn't sound great, but it'd be lovely to see him in a team that dominate the ball just that little bit more. There is obviously still a chance he stays at Chelsea, and if he does, it's an absolute no-go for me. But if he gets the move, definitely right up at the top of my list. Moving over to Spurs, and we have Harry Winks. Conte doesn't fancy him. He has been linked with a move to Southampton. If it goes through, he's someone you should consider. He was a deep line player for Spurs. He could play a little bit more advanced for Southampton. 19 appearances last season with 2 assists and 3.27 points per 90. If he stays at Spurs, he's not going to get much time, but if he does leave, one to keep an eye on. It's not like he's proven FPL pedigree or anything, but we're talking about players who might start, and he definitely fits that category. Over to the promoted sides, and we have Jack Cole back. He was an absolute nailed starter for Forest last season. He played a variety of positions, including left back, left midfield, defensive midfielder, but with the signing of Omar Richards, Nico Williams, and whoever else they do sign, it's expected he'll become a bit more of a squad player. Last season he had 41 games for 4 goals and 1 assist. So if he does manage to take a spot in that team for the first game week, there's a chance he'll stay there for some time. And over at Fulham, they've just signed Andreas Pereira from United for 10 million. He was at United for 10 years and he just never really got his chance. Just back from loan at Flamengo, and they've sold him already. Flamengo last season, 13 games for 2 goals and an assist. He really is a player we don't know what to expect. You know, with that price, 10 million, you'd expect he does play, and we know how creative he can be, but has he shown it at the top level? I don't know. Do I expect him to do much at Fulham? Probably not, if I'm being honest, but still he remains a great option, and it'll be interesting to see him in pre-season. Another midfielder who deserves a quick shout out is Carney Chukwuemeka. He set the under 19 Euros on fire with England, winning it and being one of their best players, in among the goals, in among the assists, arguably the MVP. He was outstanding. He did get minutes last season for Villa, and I expect him to get more next season should he stay, because he has attracted the eyes of a lot of huge clubs. 4.5 million, not a guaranteed starter. Watch him in pre-season. Let's see how he gets on, but a really exciting start for the future. England are very lucky to have him. And on we go to the forward position. First one to talk about, and the only one really we're going to delve into, is Sam Greenwood. Now there's a couple of really interesting things here. The first thing is his ownership. It's super high. We're going to come to that. But first off, he did play a good few minutes towards the end of the season, including 85 minutes in their vital last game of the campaign to keep them in the Premier League. He had 7 appearances, 6 of which were off the bench last season, but there is a reason you should be dubious. Basically, if you go and look at all the 4.5 million forwards, none are really expected to hit the ground running or score a lot of goals. So one way to view players like that on FPL is almost like a store of value for your wildcard whenever more options across the pitch become proven, and you want to retain as much value. With a 4.5 million player who's not likely to do very much, at 27, almost 30% ownership already, the higher the ownership, the quicker a player's price can fall or rise. So there is a chance if Greenwood doesn't start towards the start of the season that his price could go 4.4, 4.3, all of a sudden you're looking to wildcard and you're 0.1, 0.2 off a player you want to buy in that rejigged wildcard. So as counterintuitive as it might seem, for me, when you're picking a 4.5 million forward, there's only 10 to choose from. The most important thing for me is a guy who will have low ownership in a team that I do not want to triple up on because I'll be blocking a spot. So I'm actually going to pick Plange from Crystal Palace. I don't think he'll be owned by as many people, so his price is probably going to be more static, and I'm probably not going to want 3 Crystal Palace assets, so I'm not blocking any slots. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now let's go back and look at my favourite players from defence and midfield. In defence for me, there's only one standout option. His ownership's going to be through the roof, and it's Nico Williams. The only reason his ownership will not be 100% is because people will be going premium at the back, and people might actually go for 5 premium defenders. Anyone who has a budget enabler at the time of recording before more transfers go through, Nico Williams has to be the choice here for me. He's nailed the play, he has potential attack and returns, he could potentially be played out of position, he's trained at Liverpool, he got quality game time at Fulham, he's played at an international level. I think Nico Williams is the standout here, and he will be in my team if I need an enabler, but there is a chance I'm going to go 5 at the back and go for premiums. And in midfield, I'll be honest, no one really stands out. I don't love anyone. I think Winks and Gilmore are probably a bit too defensive for me, Colback not nailed enough, so I would probably have to pick Andreas Pereira. And I'm not the only one thinking like this. 15.5% ownership at the time of recording. You know, I just think of the 4.5 million midfielders, he does look the most creative at the minute. I'm hoping there's some transfer news. I'm hoping maybe someone shines in pre-season and we have a better option. But at the minute, Pereira is probably the pick of the 4.5s. Ideally, you would stretch to a 5 million midfielder, but really, this is probably going to be a player you're not going to play, so you may as well play someone you don't plan on using. Win your mini league or your money back. T's and C's do apply, but that's Hub's offer at the minute. 50% off, limited time offer in the description. Check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.